Hello bass family, and welcome to Everything Bass. Today we're going to cover an interesting topic. It's not as prevalent as it was when I first started playing bass in the 80s. But for one reason or the other, every time it would come time for a bass solo or a bass break, the band would go to a one-chord vamp. So if you don't know, a one-chord vamp is a term for when the song stops using a progression of chords and stays on one chord. In the example that I recorded just at the beginning here, it was an E dominant 7th chord, just over and over again. I don't know if they just thought we couldn't handle a progression or whatnot, but it was frustrating. Now, in all honesty, when I first started playing, I liked one-chord vamps because I wasn't very confident in my soloing, and I didn't want to have to think about chord progressions and things like that. The only problem is when you have one chord that's not moving to another chord and creating kind of a natural motion in the music and emotion, resolution, and tension and things like that, it can be very easy to fall into a trap where your soloing over a one-chord vamp becomes the same. It's not going anywhere. It's not saying anything, and it's ultimately quite forgettable. Plus, it's just not fun for you as a player to do. But sometimes, as bassists, we're not the music director, and bands come with songs already written, and we're being hired to play. And sure enough, they want some kind of bass solo or slap solo, whatever, and they go to a one-chord vamp. So I have some ideas on how you can make the soloing more interesting for you and more interesting for the listeners. So the first thing is something that came to me, it didn't come to me. It wasn't a self-realization. I had teachers tell me a lot when I was a student at BIT. I would take a solo, and several teachers would say, "Well, what were you trying to say there?" And inside I was saying, I'm trying to say it wasn't a mistake for me to come to the school because I felt very insecure about my playing. But they had a good, valid point. If you want to be interesting with your soloing, you should be trying to communicate something. Remember, at its beginning, at the source of music, when it first started, it was used to convey messages. Drums and trumpets and things were conveying messages on the battlefield, or from village to village you could hear drums and it was telling you something. It was conveying something. Then it transitioned to where it told historical things. They wrote songs to actually commemorate things so they weren't forgotten. Somehow when music became commercialized and became a money-making venture, we started but some people started just saying, well, just go out there and just play and make money and do what these guys did because they made money. And that frustrates me because we should always be trying to communicate something, telling a story with our soloing. And in that case, you can take a one-chord vamp and develop an idea. Now, I know this sounds abstract, but it can be something as simple as thinking about your favorite movie and how the dynamics, like usually the movies don't start like right out of the gate. I mean, I shouldn't say usually because there's a lot of horror movies I've seen where the very first scene is someone running, so that's tension. And you can do that. You can create that in your solo. Come out burning, shredding. I love in Cream's White Room, when Eric comes in with a solo, he's coming in with fire and fury on the beginning of the solo, and then it develops from there. It's hard to maintain that, and it's actually kind of unwise to maintain that because the audience becomes kind of numb to it if you're just like blazing 100 miles an hour the entire time. So think about, if you're trying to tell a story, develop it. Start maybe with some simple phrases. I mean, think about Miles Davis's trumpet solo in All Blues. It starts with just playing, he just plays the root. And he plays a little bend off the third. So and then it gets great. I mean, it's great there, but it develops. He actually takes us somewhere. So a simple idea is start with a small phrase, leave some space, build, and you can find it by kind of gauging the reaction of the audience. You'll learn over experimenting and playing live, like how you can actually bring them with you on this, and maybe end with a super climactic thing and make sure that your solo resolves back to like whatever the groove is. Those transitions are great. Now, I should say there's no constant. There's no always do this in music, and thank goodness there's not, because that'd become boring after a while. But these are some tips you can do. Secondly, You can also develop an idea or develop a story by the harmony that you use, the scales you decide to do, the approach. A lot of times on a one-chord vamp, I like to start just, and that's what I did in my intro, I started just with the arpeggio. I took the E dominant arpeggio, and I just started playing around with it. Then I threw in like 1 or 2 chromatics. Just taking like a half step below the 5, go up to the 5, half step below the major third, go up to the major third, then come down. See, that adds some tension. So you're very inside with your beginning ideas. Then you add some tension. Then I went, I believe, to major pentatonic because all of a sudden that major 6 sounds really cool. All right, and then I believe I skipped mixed Lydian. I went to Lydian flat 7, which is, I love it because it's the Lydian mode, but you flat the 7, so you get that flat 5 to the 5. So you can see how you can take with a plan in mind, and sometimes the plan comes to me as I'm doing it, but I'll start like, I'm going to start very sparse, a lot of sustained notes, staying inside the chord tones, and then as I'm going, I'm like, you know, it sounds good, and it's through experience that I get these ideas. You just can't dream them up one day. You just got to get out there and play and improvise. But I would start like using some chromatics, and then I might take a scale idea. One of my favorite things is I'll start with like Lydian flat 7, which has a major 3, and then as my solo develops, I switch to Dorian, which now has a minor 3rd. And but I like playing that because that minor 3rd can make kind of a stink face happen, because you're putting in this like cool tension tone that's not so out and it's familiar to people, but it really, when you throw it in, now it doesn't sound like you're a one-chord vamp. Now it sounds like you're evolving through it. Similar, there's a lot of ideas, and to stay true to my concept, which is one video for a small topic that you guys can nail and get out, I'm going to give you just these ideas. But you just have to experiment. I'm just thinking now, I wasn't going to, but I'll record a little one-chord E dominant vamp and throw it up for the Patreon subscribers, so that if you don't have the capabilities of using loopers, which is what I had in my intro, or you find it kind of cumbersome to record something on your phone and try to play over it, you'll download the WAV file. I'll have that up when I upload this video. But you have to, just get into the thing where you're playing along. Now, here's the trap. If you're playing over a one-chord vamp, you might mentally relax and not be in the moment, and you might just start doing muscle memory stuff. And that's kind of, like not cool, because you're not, if you want your audience to stay engaged, you have to stay engaged. And that's where these ideas of, using the neck, that's something I didn't talk about, but use the zones of the neck. And don't be trite, which is don't always start low and end high. Maybe start high, work your way down low, and then maybe come to mid, and and just experiment with the zones, because again, those things will shape this one chord static vamp, will create like these little like variations that are way more interesting. Now, here's a suggestion before I close the video out. When you first try this, whether you Patreon subscribers download the play along, or you can set up a vamp or whatnot, and I really want you to play over chords. I don't want you to just play just without backing tracks, because you need to hear what you're doing, how it affects the chord. But when you first do it, record yourself. Record your first attempt. And in fact, don't try to think too much about what I'm saying. Just do what you would normally do. Try to say, okay, this is my State of the Nation as my soloing, and play for like 2 minutes. That's a long solo, really. It's a really long solo. But let's say you play it for 2 minutes and save it. Don't listen to it right away. Don't play back to it. Now try some ideas. Start with chord tones. Develop, use the chromatics, move into scales, try different scales. We can talk in future videos about how to use the modes to create really cool patterned attention. Do all these things. Let a couple weeks of this practice go by. Record the last one. So after 2 weeks, you're feeling pretty good, hopefully. If not, message me and we can talk. We can figure out why you're not zoning in on this. But say you feel more comfortable, and the idea of using different scales and arpeggios thing to tell a story. Once you get that together, listen to that recording, and then right away listen to the one you did 2 weeks before. What I'm hoping you'll hear is development of idea. You'll hear that you're taking them on a path. This is a subject, by the way, that we could do a video every day for the rest of my life, talking about little nuances, and you know, you never really finish this idea of how to express yourself musically. But it's that catalyst, you know, maybe just getting you thinking a little bit about your note selection and telling a story. Now, if you're wondering about telling a story, one thing I can suggest is, what's the name of the song? If it's an original song and someone else wrote it other than you, ask them about it. Say, you know, what did you mean? What's the idea behind this? Those little things are informers. They inform you as to maybe what you want to do. And if you wrote the song, what were you thinking when you wrote it? You know, is it for somebody? Can you visualize that person? If it's an event, if you're commemorating something good or bad that happened in the world, what would the soundtrack be for that? If you're like writing a song about some of the social issues going on, and the rioting and things like that, and the violence in the world, you probably wouldn't play a Pretty Lullaby, you know. And so these things help you decide what path to take on your improv. I'm going on quite long, but I'm passionate about this topic, and it's how I practice a lot. I'll set up some kind of progression or a one-chord vamp, and I'll work through ideas, record it, listen back. What do I like? Where do I think I lost the audience? Where did I lose myself? And try to improve those things. I'd love to be your sounding board, so please, in the description below or in the comments below, you know, let me know what you're thinking. Have you tried this? What's frustrating you most about your soloing? In particular, it'd be great if we could talk specifically about one-chord vamps, but if not, open the gates. If you're having trouble soloing over a metal tune, if you're having trouble soloing over a ballad, whatever, maybe we can discuss it initially in the comments below, and then if need be, maybe we can even do some direct messaging. I'm here to help, and that's what I want to do. So guys, thank you so much for checking this video out. I hope it gives you like a passion. It kind of rekindles maybe a passion to like attack this with a new eyes and new ears and new fingers, and play better than you played before, man. That's what I'm always wanting out of myself, and that's what I'm hoping I can do for you guys. All right. Hey, if you like the video, please like the video. It really means a lot. If you take a moment, scroll down, get that little thumbs up there. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, at the time of recording, we're 11 subscribers short of 1,000. It would be so awesome if you guys could subscribe. It costs nothing. Just go down to the subscribe button, hit that, then hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when I upload. Up until, well, for most of 2020, I've been uploading videos on the weekend, usually 4 or 5 videos every weekend. But I believe that it'd be better if I just uploaded a video every other day or so, so that videos aren't getting buried and you can actually see each one and deal with each one. All right, guys, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you at the next video. I look forward to your comments, and I love you guys. Take care. Bye.